An early morning fire claimed more than 70 lives in Johannesburg's hijacked building recently, and the death toll is expected to rise as emergency services continue to search through the rest of the building. Now, the inner city neighborhood is infamous for hijacked buildings, a term used in South Africa to refer to buildings illegally taken. Now, this is not unique to Gauteng, but the whole country. Namuhla ke mbukeli sibuza ukuthi ingabe yini engenziwa ukulwisana nokubhebhetheka kokudunwa kwamabhilidi nokunobungozi kulabo abahlala kuwo, nokuthi mbukeli lenkinga yamabhilidi nedalele enhlekelele yenziwa yini.
Indaba engicabanga ukuthi igovernment kwamele ingenele then ilandelele amabhilidi wonke, angithi lapha emaphepheni inakho konke like amaphepha ya ama-councillors anayo, like especially mayor ngangenela like into ezinjalo yayilandelele then amabhilidi wonke abuyele esimweni.
Igovernment layo kufanele ukuthi isize ngoba kudala into zisenzeka kule ama-building lawa amoshakele. Yabona le inye lela laye kudala yasha futhi basha abantu, so kufanele igovernment ibone ukuthi iyenza njani ngabantu. Usizo nje singaluthola nje ukuthi abantu basizakale belungiselwe ama-building bahlale kahle.
Umasipala uma ngabe ungakwazi ukuthi lama hijack buildings ukwazi ukwamonitha ngendlela eyiyona, ngoba inkinga iqala la ekutheni ibhilidi lingahijackwa kanjani uma ngabe umasipala unesi ugade abantu ubabhekile, ngoba lento le yenziwa ngamasibomu, iphutha likamasipala hayi ukuthini iphutha nje likamasipala. Maningi ama-building ahijackiwe nozothatha ubhela emva kwami kukhona la le building le i-fire station lela ngendla ihijackiwe namanye, kodwa manje umasipala ucishihlo eshaya ngathi akaboni.
Engakusho nje mama, ngingathanda ukuthi mina ugovernment angenelele abe nendlela yokukhipha labantu abala ngaphakathi, because ingakho lamabhilidi maningi amabhilidi abayihlala kwabantu and awana electricity awana amanzi okhombisayo lama building avalwa ngezathu ezikahulumeni, but abantu bayangena bazenzele ngokuthanda kwabo.
Bekuyizimvo zababukeli lezo. Mbukelisi uhlelo sithi alohlanga lungehlanga. Sikukhumbuze ke mbukeli ukuthi ningaba ingxonya lolu hlelo ngokushayela ucingo sizwe umbono noma imibuzo yenu. Inombolo zethu zocingo ke u-01171406777 noma 011714068, kanti ungabuye futhi usithole emakhasini okuxhumana ku-Twitter @SABC Izindaba kanye na ku-Facebook ikhasi lethu lithi SABC Izindaba. Ukuze kube lula ke mbukeli sicela uqale ngo#Asikhulume #SABC News bese ke ubhala umbuzo noma umbono wakho. Ukwenyuka kwezakhiwo eziduniwe eningizimu Afrika, hijacked buildings phecelezi, kunezathu eziningi: ukuntuleka kwezindlu, izinga eliphezulu lokuntuleka komsebenzi, ubugebengu obuhleliwe kanye nemithetho nje ebuthakathaka mbukeli. Another important factor being that some hijacked buildings are not actually hijacked. They just happen to fall into disuse after years of standing in the inner city neglected. Now this week, the world woke up to a blaze in one of the buildings eseyithathe impilo kwalimala kanti nabantu abaningi, abanye abasindile bona basale dengwane. Ihlobo ke ziyacelwa ukuthi zishayele le nombolo yocingo 0800 203 886 noma 011 355 3048 uma unesihlobo ebesihlala kuleli bhilidi. Mbukeli lenkinga ayintsha ke nakwezinye izifundazwe, ikhona azikhona izakhiwo seziduniwe neziyekelelwe eziningi. Ohlelweni namuhla sibuza ukuthi, is there a plan to alleviate hijacked buildings in South Africa? Is there a political will to actually address the issue of hijacked buildings? Asamkeleke ihabeli zethu umnumzana Herman Mashaba nowaye imeya yedolobha lase Goli esifundazweni okwehle lenhlekelele kuso nodokotela umgcini thwaku unongu MMC wezokuphepha komphakathi eGoli kanye nokhuselwa tyanki nongummeli wenhlangano eyimele iSeri. Sinibonga kakhulu nonke ukuthi nibe khona ohlelweni. Ngizoqala ngawe mnumzana Mashaba. Firstly, how far back does this issue of hijacked buildings go, very briefly?
Well, when I took over in August 2016 as Executive Mayor of the City of Johannesburg, during my 100 days on the 1st of December 2016, addressing the residents, giving them 100 days of my administration. One of the issues I touched on was the issue of the hijacked buildings. At the time, with the city of Johannesburg sitting with over 300,000 housing backlog of our own people, some of them on the waiting list dating back to 95, 96, 97. And at the same time, we had lots of buildings hijacked, abandoned, derelict, and made a commitment to people of Johannesburg that we are going to address this housing challenge by reclaiming these abandoned, hijacked buildings. And that's exactly what I did, came out with, and what is now today in the city of Johannesburg at the time known as the Inner City Rejuvenation Project, approved by council. And during the 3 years, managed to expropriate 154 of those buildings, gave them to the private sector to start building. They were already awarded. Unfortunately, while I was busy with the project, the DA and ANC came out with a plan to remove me as the mayor of the city of Johannesburg.
I'm going to come back to that because I want us to look at where these projects then are right now. And if I come to you, you know, Kuselo, one of the things that is very clear here, there's a failure somewhere. For us to get to this point, there's a failure somewhere. Where would you say it is?
The failure is on the lack of low-cost housing within the inner city. We know that many people, they come to Johannesburg for economic opportunities. They come from various backgrounds with nothing, with the hope that they will better their lives in Johannesburg. And when they get to Johannesburg, there is no place where they could call it home or a shelter. So one of the most important part that is lacking is the lack of low-cost housing within the inner city.
And what do you then say? Because you're in government in the city.
All right. I thought most probably you will get a perspective in terms of what's going on with the hijacked buildings, and also in terms of coming in terms of the lack of housing and all of that. Well, I think that's where probably
yes, I'm keen to hear from you from the city's part.
Because myself in the department, when I came in the Department of Public Safety as part of the 100 days, we look in terms of many people, they've been complaining about the buildings which are being hijacked. Because with many criminals that we're chasing on the streets, they will go into those buildings which are dark, there's no electricity, there's no water and sanitation, there's dump inside, there's dead cats, and sometimes we find dead people in those buildings. People like, if you've been there, you will see what I'm talking about. And inside there are shacks, people are building shacks and by shacks, which is creating a fire hazard. So in the 100 days that I planned, when we went to inspect there with the EMS, we only used the Fire Brigade Act. We found that this building had been closed because there are, one, a fire hazard. Structural engineers have came in and then they condemned the building. And I came out and I said, even though now there is a lack of transit accommodation, because even these transit accommodations, they actually been, people, they don't want to move out again as well. Because the transit accommodation, when people have occupied a building, you need to put them into an alternative accommodation. But there were some transit houses that Joshua had. Those ones as well have been hijacked too. All right.
So, buildings.
Sorry?
Who are these people that are actually hijacking the buildings?
Abandu, so if ukupa abandu from one building to another because you want to renovate that building, ubasa kwenye Indawo, in alternative accommodation, it's a transit accommodation so that at the end, bakwazi ufumana other areas, but so that we can comply within the law. And laba bantu Indawo kuqala, they can afford. We've done an audit, earning between 6,000 and 40,000, especially, for example, Kasami. I said, okay, I'm having now, okay, as a public safety individual, I've got an EMS report here that said the building is going to get fire, it's going to catch fire. Number two, the building is going to collapse. We have a situation that we have to get people out, they need to go, you have to remove them out to get alternative accommodation. And ask them, what do you do on that? That's when now we're at odds with Siri. And then we said that because there's a lack of housing, there's a housing backlog, to be able to supply alternative accommodation to individuals. Maybe we might look at different scenarios where we can do floor-by-floor renovation.
And I'm going to come to those different scenarios in just a moment. But Ntate Mashaba, one of the things that is very clear right now is that buildings are being hijacked. They have been hijacked for a long time. Who is behind this?
Well, it's a very good question you're asking, and I think rightfully so, Bongi. I think even last night I was talking to the MMC, even now, I think as long as our criminal justice system is not going to have consequences for these hijackers, we are not going to go anywhere. And unfortunately, his coalition partners in the ANC are the ones who can really tell you who the people are behind the hijacking. Our criminal justice system, the works, the MPA, because when I was the mayor, they were given files and files of people behind hijacking. So our criminal justice system in this country must not tell South Africans then they don't know the people behind hijacking. It's just a question of them acting against them. Actually, I was taken aback a few months ago to realize one guy called Jonathan Constable. He's one of the kingpins of property hijacking. This guy, I even went to court at the time to appeal to the courts. This person cannot really be given bail. And like at the time when I was still the mayor, the courts wouldn't give him bail because we would really go out there with GVs to motivate why this person cannot be given bail. And now, about a year or so ago, I see this guy is back in the streets. Why this is happening? I reported these matters, including to the president of the country, the current president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa. I reported all these cases of criminality in the city of Johannesburg involving some of his colleagues.
I'm going to ask that we pause for a second and go for an ad break. And MMC, I'm going to give you a chance when we come back immediately, just to talk about that, because I also want to bring you Kuselo Ngoba. It looks like there's a multiple issues going on here. There are multiple issues. One, transit housing. Two, how do we get people out? All of these conversations I want us to have in just a moment. Mbugeli, siyabuya. Kwamukela mbukeli kanti uma uqeda ukuhlanganyela nathi sikhuluma ngokudunwa kwamabhilidi nokugcina kunobungozi. Sibonile kwenzeka edolobheni laseGoli mbukeli ibhedlela ke ezinalabo abalimele iChris Hani Baraganath Academic Hospital, iCharlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital, iHelen Joseph Hospital, South Rand Hospital, Tembisa Hospital kanye neRahima Musa Women and Children Hospital. Ihlobo ziyacelwa ke ukuthi ziyobheka khona. Mbukeli akasiqhubeke futhi ngale ngxoxo yethu. MMC, you wanted to respond?
Yes, no, I was saying that these things that we must not overcomplicate it. We must actually always apply superior logic what's happening. When we get into a place, people, they see a building that is abandoned, where maybe there's no security and all of that. As Mr. Mashaba said, some of the buildings, people did not have investment when they given them these buildings, these private owners. Others, they die. For example, in the Venin Court. Venin Court had the tighter security, but the investor passed on. Now the building became abandoned and people simply go in. Now what happened is that when people are sitting there, and I mean, obviously there's no lights and everything, right? So syndicates come in, even like thugs. They just say that this building is theirs. People must actually pay rent. They will actually have floor by floor. It's like, you know, it can be gangs and everything. There are some gangs which are actually operating in town. And also we are on a lead now because the Public Safety Department has actually unleashed its undercover unit. There are people now, while you are sitting here, they can change your ownership, working with the deeds office. This has been alleged right now. So we're actually following up on that. How can it be that, you know, the people, when you ask them, Barry, today you've got people coming, we are the new management of these buildings, you must be paying to us. And then a year will go, maybe people will start, fighting amongst themselves and all of that in the building. Then the building area will have a new management. So people are registering NPOs and NGOs and become management of those things. So we are also that's why I was saying that, Mr. Hammond, partly on some of the syndicates, I do agree with him in terms of this thing is actually involving, the justice and then also deeds office and maybe also some of the cities and all of that. So there is a link. So we're trying to check where is this link and all of that in this in this food chain. This is what people have been saying to us. And then we ask them, who do you pay to every time? They're saying that they normally been given accounts, like they've actually been given an account to really be paid to. And
when you trace those accounts?
So we actually busy doing that because we need to be applying. Remember, we need to work with SEPs. We have to apply.
Okay, can I just assist you here and assist the MMC with due respect? I think these matters that he's talking about, they're constitutionally, they're outside his mandate. He needs South African police, he needs the works, he needs the prosecuting authority to deal with these matters. These matters are outside his...
Because I was actually going to ask how his hands are tied. Because
unfortunately, Metro Police and the city does not really have the mandate and the constitutional obligation or authority to prosecute. So as long as your law enforcement agencies are captured, and they're going to keep on really frustrating him because he'll end up getting into trouble with Siri because he's going to really be operating outside the laws.
And that's exactly where I want to get to, because Siri has been blamed. We've seen in the past couple of days, ukuthi ngati nani ni inkinga instead of being a solution. And I wonder, what do you say to that?
No, I think icala lethu nje ukuthi simela abantu abahluphekile. We give those poor people voices in courts to be heard. So that is only our crime. And for the issues of hijacking, the city as well has city bylaws whereby they are allowed by the bylaws to go and inspect these buildings before they even get in a worse condition, to assess them whether they are in a good condition, for people to live. They don't do that. They wait up until I mean, what happened last week, up until the building, they go in a worse condition, or it collapses, or when we can see now that the building's about to collapse, and then they come on board, they want to evict people, they want to remove people from those buildings without a proper plan. Where are you going to put those people? Because in terms of the Constitution, you cannot just remove people from the bad building without having a plan where you're going to put them. But if you have control of the buildings before they get to that condition, you are able to even appoint an administrator to control the building so that it meets the standards of the city. And if you do that, I'm telling you, you wouldn't have been in this position, but they always come on board when there is a little bit too late, and we end up in this situation where we are now.
Yeah, I just want to say that Mr. Herman Mashaba is not my, the spokesperson. He had a plan, he had a chance when he was in the EM to deal with this thing. He must give us a chance to really do what we actually have to do. And
so he's not giving you a chance?
No, he's not, because now he's interjecting, he's a crybaby, and said that it's not my, there's a problem. He's actually shifting a blame. He's not taking, we are taking charge. We are taking, I think, working with SEPs. We are working with these people. We force them to work. For example, when we had to deal with the mines and everything, I know that it was not a jurisdiction of us, but we've acted. So he must not cry like a baby and all of that. I understand his concern. And he was told yesterday that, can you just let the MMC be? Because I've been saying to him now when we're talking here, we have a plan. And also we've been interacting with the stakeholders.
I want him to respond to you.
Before we run out of time. Wait, no, because you let him to talk and all of that. I'm saying is, even with these buildings, even Syria is lying. The liars of note, because they must not go down that route. Because now Batay City does not do any inspection. I'm coming here to tell you that with the EMS, we've got thousands and thousands of reported buildings being condemned. Problem is that we do tell them, I came in that building in dark. It's building ayinamanzi. If there's no electricity. And abantu, they are benza an open fire, benza imbawula and everything. If building imnyama is condemned and it's a fire hazard, and structural engineers, they came out now as buildings. The problem is, instead of you crying like babies, is there a way that we cannot maybe abantu sibone ukuthi how are we going to do and maintain this building? Maybe we can have maybe a shelter something that we can design amongst ourselves. So in is that they become excited like little molecules. They litigate us. And they come out, but they want.
Okay,
yeah,
quickly. That's Mashaba, you are a crybaby. Very briefly.
Look, MMC doesn't understand that. I really want him to succeed, and I genuinely want him to succeed so that our poor people can be given accommodation. But he's, in fact, in the first place, he's the wrong agency to be handling hijacked buildings. He's public safety. This matter belongs to JPC. Those are the people who are responsible for them. So I'm trying to say is that it looks like there's really a little bit of confusion here to actually really know who's the actual person who should really
enforce bylaws.
We have to go for a break.
Yeah.
We have to go for a break. Kuselo still needs to respond because you've also said things, and I'd like us to just after the Mbugeli.
I need to tell you about what's happening with the building.
I hear you, MMC,
so that we
but
can get into a
unfortunately we
solution.
don't have a lot of time. I wish we did, but we are going to have another conversation on this. I do promise you. I'm going to come to you very briefly just to respond to what MMC had to say.
I heard MC saying that he has invited us at some point to come and work with the city. I know very well that Seri has been working with Department of Housing trying to address the housing issues in the inner city. And I know very well that when we are invited by any department, because we're representing poor people, there's no way that we will reject that invitation. We're always willing to work with you, MMC. And I remember very well there was a building that also one of the problematic buildings in the inner city, the Remington building. And we had interacted with him, and we told him that we're willing to work with him in trying to address the issues that are faced.
So it's possible to work
together. It is possible, but the problem is we have to do everything in terms of the law. There is no way that we will do everything by what he is telling us it must happen. We have to look at the interest of our clients and what the Constitution says.
So, Kusala, very briefly, there's another dimension which has been added here as we wrap up, and I wonder if it's a big issue, the issue of people who are undocumented in the country. Does that play a role as well?
In terms of?
These hijacked buildings.
I mean, they should know who are the hijackers, number one. And I cannot say that the hijackers are undocumented people. I don't know.
Well,
I know very well that some of our clients, they did report some of the hijackers to the office of the inner city, the forensic department. They did their report, so they should know. They should have the information.
Well, fortunately enough, I was involved in majority of the raids when I was the mayor. Up to 80% of the people in these buildings were undocumented foreign nationals, and that's where personally I had
tenants.
Yes,
not hijackers.
But some of them are hijackers. But the tenants, and that's where I had issues with Siri when then they called me xenophobic, including ANC reporting me to the Human Rights Commission, and this were facts. Look at this building that burned. How many people there are foreign nationals undocumented? I mean, this effect, and I'm not saying it because they are foreigners, it is a fact that the majority of tenants who are exploited by these syndicates are undocumented foreign nations. And it's something that for some South Africans, we're too scared to talk about it. I don't know why. Then we must be prepared to pay the price for our silence.
Well, Mr. Hemen Mashava, you must remember when he get into the council, he actually implemented a sponsored motion by the EFF to audit the buildings, by the way. That's what he's not saying. That we said to him, audit these buildings because they are a disaster waiting to happen. And number two, there was a motion that we put in, it said expropriate these buildings without compensation, convert them into student housing and others into low-cost housing. So he must not get, I'm continuing with the EFF manifesto. So I'm there. Number two, I'm public safety. The safety is in my department. I'm in charge.
I'm a police. Are they working with you?
I'm in charge. Yes, I'm working with Umamu Faith and also Mr. Mawel. We are working together. The issues of safety, the problem is that Mr. Memashaba, he likes crying and calling all these people. But they say that, what are you doing when Mr. Chwaku in your area, in your space? So that's why I'm using all the bylaws because I'm enforcing bylaws. The only thing I said to them with Siri, I think that we're starting to find each other. That in the EMS reports that they've done many times, we do audit. I'm not going to lie to you. I go inside, and even that's when I even went and checked myself. I said, Siri, here is a building condemned, guys. I know that the matter is sub judice. And people are living in squalor and abandoned with the kids. There are even orphanages inside, by the way. There are even NGOs. It's dark. What do you do about that, guys? Let's leave the laws. Let's leave all of that. Because once abantu ubakhuphe lapha and then put them in some accommodation, of which we can agree on, because we have a challenge, obviously. We can't give them sentin houses, and it's something that can be there. But the building is about to collapse. I said with them, Gary, there's options of doing a floor-by-floor renovations because some of them can afford in the audit. That's what I said to them. I'm from an organization that cares for the poor. Ngiyabazi ogogo laphayana ukho omama badala since 1990 and the 80s. That mama, don't worry, I'll take care of you.
All right.
But all these ones, Bona, these other criminals which are there, these ones who are staying there for free, they want a free housing, but they can afford. That we can find for them one by one in terms of we do what is called a partial relocation.
Okay. So
one by one.
MMC, Mr. Mashaba, Kusela, I'd like us to commit that we're going to do part 2 of this conversation.
Sure, yeah.
And hopefully we have more time and more players at the table, because there's a lot of concern each of you are raising. And I'm sure the viewers want to know more about what's going on. And we need to spend sufficient time to understand what's going on here, because there's a lot that's been going on. And you think about whether or not does the private sector come to invest in an inner city that is filthy, for example? Do they want to look at their investments and say that their investments are making a return for them? So I want us to talk about these issues, but let me thank you so much for your time. Mbugeli, that's all unfortunately we have time for. Kodwa ingxoxo iyaqhubeka einkundleni zethu zokuxhumana. Sibonge ukuthi ube nathi kanye sibonge futhi nakumnumzana uHerman Mashaba owayeyimeya yedolobha laseGoli esifundazweni okwehle lenhlekelele kuso, nodokotela umgcini Chwaku nongu MMC wezokuphepha komphakathi eGoli kanye nokhuselwa Tyanki nongummeli wenhlangano eyimele iseri. Asethembe mbukela ukuthi ingxoxo izoqhubeka emakhasini ethu okuxhumana. Ubongiwe uMakhumalo wakwazwane nethemba la Asikhulume. Nisale kahle.